I didn't mean to stay that late. At first, I just came to drop off a book my friend had borrowed, something small, forgettable. But his mom answered the door instead, and somehow, I never made it past the hallway. Her name was Elena. She was in her 40s, maybe late. Barefoot, hair pulled into one of those loose knots that looks unplanned but perfect. I'd seen her a few times before, from a distance, but never like this. Never standing close enough to smell the faint trace of coffee and paint on her sleeves. She smiled when she saw me, polite but distracted. "He's not home," she said, leaning against the doorframe. "He went out about an hour ago." I should have left. Said, "Okay," and turned back down the porch steps. But I didn't. Maybe it was the way her eyes softened when she noticed the book in my hand, like she was looking for an excuse to let me stay. "Come in," she said after a pause. "You can leave it inside. He'll see it." Her living room was quiet, warm, filled with evening light that caught dust motes in the air. There were canvases stacked against one wall. She was painting something new, something half-finished. I didn't ask about it, but I kept looking. "You like it?" she asked suddenly, following my gaze. "Yeah," I said. "It feels like it's waiting for something." Her eyes flicked to mine, just for a moment. Then she laughed softly, that low kind of laugh that sounds private. Maybe it is. I sat on the edge of the couch while she poured herself a glass of wine. She offered me water. I said yes, even though I wasn't thirsty. Every few seconds, one of us would say something meaningless about the weather, the smell of turpentine, the way time moves differently on slow afternoons. But under all of it, there was something unspoken, a pulse that neither of us named. When she sat across from me, I noticed the smallest details: the faint scar near her thumb, the chipped red polish, the way she touched her necklace when she was thinking. She asked about college, about what I wanted to do after. I answered, but halfway through, I forgot what I was saying. Her gaze stayed on me, steady, searching. Like she was listening to something else entirely. Then the clock in the kitchen ticked too loud. She looked up, almost startled. "It's late," she said. "You shouldn't be here." Her voice was soft, but it carried something I couldn't place, not a warning, exactly. More like an admission. I stood slowly, setting the empty glass on the table. "Yeah," I murmured. "I should go." But neither of us moved. The air felt different now, thick, suspended, as if the whole house was holding its breath. She took one small step closer, and I swear the space between us changed shape. Then, as I reached for the door, she spoke again, quieter this time, almost to herself. "But—" I turned. Her eyes met mine, and for the first time, she didn't look away. "I'm glad you're here." The words hung there, fragile, dangerous, and real. She smiled faintly, almost apologetically, like she already knew what that meant. And before I could say anything, before I could even breathe, she reached past me to open the door. Our hands brushed. Just that. Skin against skin, a spark that wasn't supposed to happen. She froze. So did I. Outside, the night hummed with crickets. Inside, her breath caught. And that's when I knew, whatever this was, it had already begun. I told myself I wasn't going back. But 2 days later, I was standing at her door again, holding a wrench this time, pretending I was there to help fix a leaking pipe she'd mentioned in passing. She hesitated before letting me in, like she already knew I didn't really come for that. The kitchen light was dim, golden, catching in her hair as she leaned under the sink. I crouched beside her, close enough to see a freckle behind her ear. She smelled like citrus and rain, like something clean, real. "You don't have to do this," she said quietly, handing me a towel. "I don't mind." She didn't answer. Just watched me, her hand resting on the counter, fingers tapping a rhythm she probably didn't notice. When the pipe finally stopped dripping, I sat back, wiping my hands. The silence between us was full, not awkward, not empty, just full. I glanced at her and found her looking right at me. No smile this time. Just eyes that seemed tired and curious at once. My husband used to fix everything around here, she said suddenly, her voice barely above a whisper. He left 2 years ago. Guess I never really learned how to do things without him. The confession hit me like a soft punch, not because of the words, but because of how she said them. No tears. No self-pity. Just quiet truth. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to tell her she didn't need him. That the way she stood there, calm, unshaken, still holding her world together, said more than any man could. But I didn't. Instead, I asked, "Do you miss him?" She let out a breath that sounded almost like a laugh. Sometimes. Mostly, I just miss not having to explain myself. That lingered between us. She turned to the window, tracing a line in the condensation with her finger. I caught myself staring again. The soft outline of her shoulders. The way the light hit the curve of her cheek. Every small detail felt unfair, too intimate for someone I wasn't supposed to look at this way. Your friend would think this is strange, she said, not turning around. Yeah, I admitted. He probably would. Her lips curved slightly. Then why are you still here? I opened my mouth, but no words came. Maybe because I didn't know. Maybe because I knew too well. She faced me again, slow, deliberate. Her gaze held mine a moment longer than it should have. I shouldn't be keeping you, she said softly, but her body didn't move toward the door. Do you want me to go? I asked. She didn't answer right away. Then, with a small shake of her head, she said the thing that made my heart stumble. Not yet. She reached out, fingers brushing the inside of my wrist, barely a touch, but enough to make everything else fade out. The wrench slipped from my hand and clattered against the floor. Neither of us looked down. I kept thinking about her hand on my wrist. The way her fingers had lingered, not long enough to be obvious, but too long to forget. I told myself it was nothing. That she was just being kind, lonely, or grateful. But when her text came that evening, the pipe's leaking again. Could you take a look? My stomach turned in a way kindness didn't explain. I was at her place 15 minutes later. She opened the door in an old gray sweater, sleeves rolled up, hair slightly damp. She looked surprised that I'd come so quickly, or maybe she'd expected it all along. I didn't think you'd actually. She started. I was nearby. I lied. The air inside felt heavier this time. No radio playing. Just the low hum of the fridge and the rain starting outside. She led me back to the kitchen, but the floor was dry. The sink was fine. I looked at her. Where's the leak? She hesitated, then gave the faintest, almost guilty smile. Maybe I panicked too soon. That was when I understood. She hadn't called because of the sink. We stood there, facing each other, the silence stretched thin. Then a vibration broke it, her phone buzzing on the counter. She reached for it but froze when she saw the name on the screen. Her ex-husband's name. She silenced the call, set the phone face down, and exhaled shakily. He always calls when it rains, she said, almost to herself. He used to hate when I'd paint during storms. I wanted to say something, anything, but all that came out was her name. Just Elena. She looked up sharply, like she wasn't used to hearing it that way. No. Mrs. No politeness. Just her, standing there in a quiet kitchen that suddenly felt too small for what was happening between us. I shouldn't keep talking about him, she said, rubbing her arms. You didn't come here for that. I don't mind, I said. You can. Her eyes softened. She stepped closer, slow, hesitant. You're kind, she murmured. Too kind for this. I almost asked what this meant, but my throat tightened. She was right there now, close enough that I could see the faint tremor in her breath. My pulse was a mess. She looked at me like she was trying to memorize something she shouldn't. Then, barely audible, she said, You make it easy to forget I'm supposed to be careful. Her words hit deeper than they should have. My chest felt tight. I wanted to step back, to stop this before it went somewhere it couldn't return from. But I didn't. Then, a knock at the door. We both flinched. She turned eyes wide, then whispered, "It's probably your friend." My heart dropped. I backed away from her instinctively, trying to catch my breath as she went to the door. But before she opened it, she turned her head slightly, and whispered, without looking at me, "Don't say anything." The doorknob turned. And as her hand lingered on the handle, her fingers trembled, the same way mine did. That was the moment I realized either of us knew how to stop anymore. It wasn't my friend at the door. Just a delivery guy with a package and a half apology for the wrong address. Still, the moment broke something open, the fragile balance we'd been holding onto since that first night. When she closed the door, Elena didn't turn around right away. She just stood there, hand on the knob, breathing like she'd run a mile. "You should probably go," she said softly. I should have listened. But I didn't move. "I will," I said. "In a minute." She let out a quiet laugh, the kind that sounds like disbelief. "You keep saying that." I took a step closer, not sure if I wanted to argue or apologize. "Do you want me to stop?" Her shoulders tensed. Then she turned slowly, her eyes finding mine. "I don't know what I want anymore," she said. "You make it confusing." That silence again, heavy, impossible. I could feel the rain pressing against the windows, the faint hum of thunder in the distance. She walked past me toward the table, picked up her glass of wine, then set it down again without drinking. "You remind me of when things still felt alive," she whispered. "Before everything started falling apart." I didn't know if she meant her marriage or her life. Maybe both. "Elena," I said quietly, "you don't have to explain." She looked up sharply. "Don't do that. Don't be kind about it. You're too young to understand what it's like to need something that makes no sense." "I'm not that young," I said before I could stop myself. Her eyes held mine, unreadable, searching. For a long moment neither of us spoke. I could see the war behind her expression, guilt, longing, something dangerously close to surrender. She reached up to push her hair back, but her hand trembled halfway through. "You should hate me a little," she said. "It would make this easier." I stepped closer, voice low. "That's not what I feel." Her breath caught, barely audible, but I heard it. Then, as if pulled by something neither of us could fight, she moved toward me. Close enough that the heat from her skin made it hard to think. "Tell me this isn't happening," she said, voice breaking just enough to sound real. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But the words wouldn't come. Her eyes flicked between mine, desperate for an answer, for some kind of reason to stop. "Elena," I whispered, her name almost a question. Her hand came up, not a full touch, just her fingers hovering near my face, like she was afraid the air itself might shatter if she made contact. Outside, the thunder rolled closer. Inside, time stopped. We stood there, breath against breath, both waiting for the other to break first. Then she whispered, "If I ask you to stay, you won't go, will you?" I couldn't answer. And in that silence, thick and trembling, the truth was already there. The thunder had faded by morning, but the silence hadn't. I hadn't slept. I sat in my car outside her house, staring at the faint light in her kitchen window, the one that always stayed on too long. I'd almost gone in. Twice. Then I saw a car pull up behind me. It was Evan. My friend. Her son. He stepped out, slamming the door harder than he meant to. He didn't see me right away. Just walked toward the porch, carrying a grocery bag, muttering something to himself. Then he stopped. Looked at my car. Our eyes met through the rain-streaked windshield. "Dude? What are you doing here?" I forced a smile. Elena needed help with something." The sink again. His face changed. Just slightly. Not suspicion yet, but the start of it. "You fixed that days ago." I swallowed. "She texted last night. I guess it started leaking again." He looked toward the house, then back at me. "You were here last night?" Before I could answer, the front door opened. Elena stood there, wrapped in a robe, hair tied back carelessly. She froze when she saw both of us. For a heartbeat, everything in her expression, warmth, panic, guilt, flashed and vanished just as quickly. "Morning," she said, her voice calm but too even. "What's going on?" Evan looked between us. "You texted him about a leak?" Yes," she said, eyes flicking to me. "He was kind enough to help. You should thank him." I nodded, pretending the world wasn't collapsing under my ribs. But Evan didn't buy it. Not entirely. His jaw tightened. "Yeah. Sure. Thanks." He brushed past her into the house. The sound of cupboards opening followed, then silence. Elena closed the door halfway, keeping her eyes on me. "You need to go," she whispered. "Elena, please." Her voice cracked on that word. Not loud, but enough. I hesitated, wanting to say something, anything, that might make sense of the mess we'd made without meaning to. But her eyes stopped me. When I finally drove off, I could still see her through the rearview mirror, standing in the doorway, one hand pressed to her chest, like she was trying to hold something in place before it broke. Later that evening, I got a text. "We need to talk. Come by tonight." I almost didn't go. But I did. When she opened the door, she looked different, steady, decided. The kind of calm that hides a storm underneath. "There's something you should know," she said, stepping aside. "Before this goes any further." I waited. She looked down, then met my eyes again, and said it. "He knows." My stomach dropped. "Evan?" She nodded slowly. "He didn't say it. But I saw it in his face. And he's not wrong." For a long second, we just stood there, the weight of it pressing down. Then, instead of stepping back, she whispered, almost defiant, "So what do we do now?" And I had no answer, only the sound of my heartbeat, and the quiet, reckless truth that I wasn't ready to walk away. The air felt heavier that night, not because of the heat, but because everything between us had finally lost its place to hide. Elena stood by the kitchen table, arms crossed, eyes flicking between the floor and me. The space between us had never felt smaller, or more dangerous. "I can't undo this," she said finally. "Whatever he suspects, whatever he thinks, it's already there. And I don't know what that means for you." "I don't care what he thinks," I said, maybe too quickly. "This wasn't what?" she interrupted. "A mistake?" I went quiet. She nodded slowly, like she'd been expecting my silence. "I've been through mistakes before," she said softly. "I know how they start. They don't look wrong at first, they look like hope." She sat down, rubbing her hands together, then looked up at me. Her eyes were tired, red around the edges, but still full of something I couldn't walk away from. "I don't want to be your mistake," she whispered. "You're not," I said. "You never were." The room stayed silent long enough for me to hear the rain again, tapping faintly against the glass, the same way it had the night this started. I took a step closer. "You said once you miss feeling alive?" I murmured. "Maybe that's what this is, not right, not easy, but real." Her eyes softened, and for the first time that night, she didn't look away. "You really think we can make real out of this?" I didn't answer. I just reached out, slow, hesitant, until my fingers brushed hers. She didn't pull away this time. Her breath trembled. "You make me forget to be careful," she said. "And that scares me. I'm scared too." We stood there, two people who shouldn't have ended up here, and yet somehow had. All the distance, all the pauses, all the almosts, they'd all been leading to this single moment of stillness. Then she said, almost in a whisper, "If I let this happen, it has to mean something. It can't just be what fills the quiet." I nodded. "Then let it mean something." Her hand tightened around mine, just once, brief but deliberate, before she leaned forward, resting her forehead against my shoulder. Neither of us said anything. There was nothing left to explain. Just the sound of rain, our uneven breathing, and the small, fragile peace that comes when truth finally stops hiding. After a while, she pulled back and met my eyes. So what now? She asked. I thought about all the reasons to walk away, her son, the whispers, the years between us, and then the single reason I couldn't. We start with honesty, I said, and see where it takes us. For the first time since I'd met her, Elena smiled without trying to hide it. It wasn't relief, it was surrender. Outside, the rain slowed. Inside, she didn't let go of my hand. It's been 6 months since that night, since the rain, the silence, the words we finally said out loud. Elena moved out of that house a few weeks later. Not to run away, but to start fresh. I helped her pack, one box at a time, watching as she chose what to keep and what to leave behind. The canvases went first, the ones she'd left unfinished. She said she wanted to paint somewhere new, where the light was different. Evan and I stopped talking for a while. That was her idea. She said some distance might make things easier. Maybe she was right. But when I finally saw him again, months later, at a coffee shop, he just nodded. No words, no confrontation. Just a quiet kind of understanding I didn't expect. Maybe he already knew that what existed between us wasn't built on betrayal, but something harder to explain. I still visit her studio sometimes. It's small, filled with plants and the smell of oil paint and lavender. She always leaves the window open, even in winter. The light feels more honest that way, she says. Sometimes we don't even talk much. I'll sit on the couch, watching her paint, the sunlight spilling across her hands. There's something peaceful about the quiet now, the kind that doesn't need to hide behind small talk or denial. She's different too. Softer, maybe? More certain of herself. The guilt that used to live in her eyes has turned into something gentler, acceptance, maybe even peace. And me? I'm not the same either. I used to think love had to be loud to matter, that it needed to announce itself to the world. But she taught me that sometimes love hides in the small things, a look held too long, a truth whispered in the dark, a choice made when no one's watching. We don't call it anything, what we have. We don't need to. Labels make it smaller than it is. What matters is that we found something real in a place either of us expected to. Sometimes she still says it, half joking, when I show up late at night. You shouldn't be here. And I still answer the same way, every time, quietly, almost smiling. I know. Then she'll step aside, just enough for me to walk in, and the world outside will fade again. Not because it's forbidden anymore, but because it's ours. Maybe that's what love really is, not the easy kind that fits inside rules, but the kind that changes you just enough to see yourself differently. Because somewhere between all the almosts and the mistakes, we didn't ruin each other. We made each other honest. Sparkles, did you enjoy the story? What moment between them hit you the hardest, the silence, the confession, or the choice they made at the end?